On my sister's wedding day, my mom and sister demanded I pay $10,000 for catering for my own daughter's future fund. When I refused, saying, "This is for her college," my mom yelled, "You are so selfish, family comes first." Dad added, "Some people just don't understand sacrifice." Then my sister suddenly dragged my innocent 8-year-old daughter by the hair, screaming, "Your mother ruined my wedding." She slammed her head against the wall with full force, then threw her off the stage. My daughter crashed down the steps and screamed in pain while blood poured from her head. The wedding guest just stood there watching in shock. Mom said, "She'll be fine now about that money." Dad nodded. "Stop being dramatic and pay up." My daughter was lying there crying, but they didn't care. But suddenly, someone walked in through the venue doors, and my sister began trembling with panic. The morning of Natalie's wedding started with a phone call I should have ignored. My mother's voice crackled through the speaker, sharp and demanding, as always. "We need you at the venue early. There's a situation with the catering." I was braiding my daughter Lily's hair, watching her excited face in the bathroom mirror. She'd been looking forward to being a flower girl for weeks, practicing her walk down the aisle in our living room. At 8 years old, she still believed family gatherings meant love and togetherness. "What kind of situation?" I asked, already feeling the familiar knot forming in my stomach. "Just get here now." The line went dead. I should mention that Lily had just turned 9 2 weeks before this. She'd celebrated with a small party at the park, excited about being a flower girl at her aunt's wedding. 40 minutes later, I pulled into the parking lot of the Grandview Estate, a sprawling venue with marble columns and manicured gardens. Lily skipped ahead of me, her flower girl dress swishing around her knees. Inside, the main ballroom was chaos. Wedding planners rushed between tables, florists arranged centerpieces, and my mother stood in the center like a general surveying her troops. Finally, she snapped when she saw me. "Come here." Natalie emerged from a side room, still in her bathrobe, her hair in curlers. My sister had always been beautiful in that effortless way that made people stare. Today, though, her face was tight with stress. "Tell her," my mother commanded. Natalie crossed her arms. "The caterer's been having financial problems for weeks. They missed our last 2 check-ins, and this morning they finally admitted they can't fulfill the contract. Something about supply chain issues and vendor debts." My stomach dropped. "What? How is that even possible? Didn't you have a contract?" "Doesn't matter now," my mother interrupted. "What matters is we need $10,000 immediately to hire the backup caterer. They're the only company available on such short notice, and they're willing to mobilize their entire team if we pay up front today." I stared at them both. $10,000? Where am I supposed to get that kind of money? My mother's expression hardened. "From Lily's college fund. You've mentioned it enough times." The room seemed to tilt. "That money is for her future. I've been saving since she was born. This is an emergency." Natalie cut in. Her voice had that entitled edge I'd heard my entire life. "You're my only sister. How can you not help me on my wedding day? I'm sorry this happened, but I can't just drain Lily's education fund because your caterer bailed. Can't the Grimm's family help? What about postponing?" My mother's face flushed red. "His parents already contributed $50,000 to this wedding. We can't ask them for more and postpone. Are you insane? Do you have any idea what people would say? The Hawthorns are coming, the Richardsons. Half the city social circle is arriving in 3 hours. Then serve pizza," I said, my own frustration rising, "or pasta. Something affordable." "Pizza?" Natalie's voice went shrill. "At my wedding, are you trying to humiliate me? I'm not trying to do anything except protect my daughter's future." My mother stepped closer, her perfume overwhelming. "You're so selfish. Family comes first. That's how it's always been, and you know it." The ballroom doors opened, and my father walked in carrying garment bags. He took one look at the scene inside. "What's going on now? Your daughter refuses to help her sister." My mother said she'd rather watch this wedding fall apart than contribute. My father set down the bags and fixed me with that disappointed Sarah. I knew so well. Some people just don't understand sacrifice. Real family members step up during crisis. "This isn't about sacrifice," I protested. "This is about $10,000 I've saved over 8 years for Lily's education. I can't just hand it over." "You can," Natalie said coldly. "You just won't." Lily tugged on my sleeve. Mommy, what's wrong? Nothing, sweetheart, I said, bending down to her level. Why don't you go look at the flowers? She wandered toward the centerpieces while my family closed ranks around me. Think about everything we've done for you, my mother hissed. Who paid for your car when you were 23? Who let you live at home run free during college? I paid back every cent of that car loan, I reminded her. And I worked 3 jobs during college to cover my expenses. Details, she waved her hand dismissively. The point is, family helps family. You're being incredibly stubborn about this. My father nodded slowly. Your sister only gets married once. Lily has years to save for college. She's 8, I said through clenched teeth. The money I have now will grow with compound interest. Starting over would put her years behind. Natalie's eyes filled with tears, the same manipulation tactic she'd used since childhood. I can't believe you care more about money than about me today of all days. That's not fair. And you know it. What's not fair is you standing here making excuses while my wedding is falling apart. The planner hovered, waiting. I set my jaw. No. My mother's voice rose, bouncing off the chandeliers. Selfish, my father added. Stop being dramatic and pay up. Guests drifted in, catching fragments like gossip confetti. Natalie, who I will call by her middle name now, Tessa, because I am done giving her the stage, stalked toward my daughter. Lily, June, to protect what's left of her privacy, stood near the dais, holding a rose and trying to be brave. Tessa's hand shot out, a fist in June's hair. June screamed. I lunged, but my mother, Elaine, latched onto my arm. Let her learn, she hissed. My father, Russ, watched, arms folded. Tessa, stop, I shouted. She slammed June's head against the wall with a wet thud that split the room, and my world blood ran into my child's eyes. Then Tessa shoved her off the low stage. June tumbled, limbs folding wrong, and hit the marble with a sound I will never forget. I dropped beside her, tore off my cardigan, pressed it to the gash. I'm here, baby. Breathe with me. Her left arm lay twisted. The pain stole her words and left only that high, terrible keening. The planner fumbled for her phone. Elaine snatched it. No ambulances, not at my daughter's wedding. Call 911, I said to anyone. Everyone. People stared. One woman recorded. Russ said evenly, this could have been avoided if you'd helped. Tessa, chest heaving, looked satisfied. As if hurting a child could balance a spreadsheet of grievances, I grabbed my own phone with blood-slick fingers. Before I could dial, the venue doors banged open so hard the hinges cried. Footsteps, decisive, uninvited, cut across the marble 2 uniformed officers. And behind them, a man whose name I had only ever heard in stories. The ex who knew the real Tessa. She saw him and went cold as stone. The officers crossed the marble like a metronome. The woman knelt beside us, eyes level with June's. Sweetheart, I'm Officer Daniels. We're calling an ambulance. The younger officer faced my family. Nobody touches that phone again. Elaine let the planner's cell drop. Russ's jaw set in stone. The man with the officers stopped at the foot of the stage. Tessa flinched. Trevor, she whispered, as if the name itself could rewrite the scene. He lifted his own phone. A video played. The grab, the thud, the fall, captured from the doorway by a guest. The sound of June's cry filled the ballroom like sirens. Enough, Officer Daniels said. Ma'am, to Tessa. Step down, hands where I can see them. The ambulance crew arrived fast, all calm hands and clipped questions. They stabilized June's arm, wrapped her head, counted breaths. We're taking her now, a paramedic told me, and I climbed into the rig without asking permission. As the doors closed, I saw cuffs flash. Tessa's face had gone flat. Elaine shouted something about family. Russ didn't move. At the hospital, June got pain meds, 18 stitches, a cast from wrist to elbow. No skull fracture, the ER physician said, but we'll watch for concussion. I kissed her damp hair and cued every kindness I'd ever learned. Water, a blanket, a low voice. Officer Daniels appeared with a notepad. I told her everything, from the demand for $10,000 to the phone ripped from the planner's hands. She nodded once. We'll recommend charges for your sister and obstruction for your parents. Trevor came by with a stuffed fox and a quiet apology. I called the police from the parking lot when I saw the live stream. Your parents tried to stop the 911 call? I nodded. He exhaled like a door finally opening. The groom already left this morning, he said. I told him about Tessa's sealed case from years ago, embezzlement, forged signatures. He wanted to hear it from her. She didn't tell him. I stared. She stole from you. 47,000, he said. I thought the settlement and restitution would teach her a lesson. I was wrong. He set a card on the tray. My counsel specializes in family and criminal matters. If you want help, you have it. CPS visited that night. The caseworker saw June asleep, my hands shaking, the cast, the stitched curve. She asked careful questions, safety plan, housing, history. When I played the video, she swallowed hard. You protected your child, she said. We'll close this as soon as the criminal side is set. By morning, the DA's office had the footage Daniels called. Arraignment at 2. No contact orders requested. In the waiting room, the television ran floral stock footage while I signed the hospital's forms. A social worker handed me resources. Trauma therapists, victim compensation, a grant for out-of-pocket costs. I thought of the fund I'd refused to surrender and felt, for the first time in years, unashamed of the boundary. In court, Tessa wore a borrowed suit and a stare that looked like blame. Elaine and Russ sat behind her, hands welded together. The judge watched the video twice without changing expression. Bail denied, she said. No contact with the child or the mother, surrender passport. Russ stood as if to object, then sat. When the bailiff turned, Elaine cried without tears. That night, June jolted awake, certain she was falling. I pressed my palm to the mattress and said, We are on the ground, we are safe. We practiced a new vocabulary. 5 things you can see, 4 you can touch, 3 you can hear, 2 you can smell, 1 you can name that you love. She chose the fox. I chose her breath. Trevor dropped off groceries and left without staying, an ally respecting distance. The planner texted me her statement. 3 guests sent their videos. My phone filled with evidence and with small mercies. Neighbors offering rides, co-workers covering a shift, a teacher emailing gentle makeup work. I made a folder called Proof and another called Kindness, and watched both grow. The DA filed formal charges within the week. Assault on a minor, battery, child endangerment, reckless endangerment. Obstruction recommendations for Elaine and Russ Daniels served the no-contact order at my apartment herself. If anyone from that side shows up, call 911 first, me second. I printed the order and taped a copy inside the hall closet. June's pediatrician cleared her for half-days at school. I walked her to class the first week, then to the counselor's office for the quiet room when the hallways felt too loud. She wore her cast like a trophy and her scar like a comet's path. I'm brave, she told Petra, the hospital nurse who called to check in. Over speakerphone, Petra said, That's because you practiced. Trevor's attorneys outlined a civil path, costs, therapy, punitive damages, and a restraining order that could extend years. I said yes to all of it. Not for vengeance, for structure, for a paper fence high enough that no one could pretend they hadn't seen it. Elaine tried a new angle, voicemails about talking this out, a text that read, Family fixes things privately. Russ left one message, You've embarrassed us. I blocked the numbers and kept the recordings. Daniels forwarded them to the DA. Weeks turned into steps. June learned to sleep through storms again. I learned that strength can feel like silence. The cast came off. The scar settled from angry red to pale thread. She and I made a ritual of closing the door at night. Lock, deadbolt, chain, then one silly knock for luck. We named the things that were ours, the fox, the lamp, the little blue folder with our documents, our breaths in a room nobody gets to take. On the morning of the preliminary hearing, I packed snacks, documents, and June's favorite marker. The prosecutor previewed the exhibits, the videos, the planner's testimony, the text threads about the backup caterer that Tessa had never hired in the corridor. I saw Elaine look at June's scar and then at the floor. Russ looked at no one. Inside, the judge asked the DA to proceed. When the footage played, the room inhaled as one. The judge's knuckles whitened around the pen. We will set this for trial, she said, and her voice was the opposite of ceremonial. It was work being done. Outside the courthouse, June held my hand and tilted her head toward the sun. Can we get ice cream? She asked. 2 scoops, I said, and we did. That evening, bowls in the sink and bandage wrappers in the trash, I opened a fresh notebook and wrote a single line across the first page. We are not here to keep the peace. We are here to keep each other. By the time summer pressed its heat against our windows, the orders were in place and the calendar dotted with dates. Therapy, deposition, case management conference. I slid everything into a blue binder labeled with the month June 1st laughed again. When fear crept in, I pressed the binder's spine and remembered, proof is a light switch. That night, I checked the locks, dimmed the lamp, and listened to June's even breathing. In the quiet, I promised the same thing I had promised beside the hospital bed. I will see this through. No more excuses for anyone. No more bargains with harm. We were home, and that was enough to begin again. The trial came faster than I expected, and slower than I wanted. By September, subpoenas landed like heavy mail. I met with the prosecutor in a bright office where everything smelled faintly of dry erase markers. She walked me through the order of proof, the ballroom video, the planner's account, the paramedic report, the ER photos, the texts about the backup caterer, and the messages where Elaine said family fixes things privately. Juries understand patterns, she said. We'll show them one. On day one, Tessa kept her eyes on the table. Elaine and Russ sat behind her, faces arranged like grief they hadn't earned. When the first video played, the room exhaled a sound I felt in my ribs. The planner testified, voice shaking. The paramedic explained what a fall like that can do to a child's arm and skull. The ER nurse narrated each stitch on June's forehead like a ledger balanced against harm. Tessa's attorney suggested stress, suggested bridal panic, suggested she lost herself for a moment. The prosecutor asked the jurors to replay the moment in their minds and count how long it took to cross a room, grip a child, slam a head, and throw a body down steps. That's not a moment, she said. That's a series of decisions. When I testified, I told the truth without decoration, the demand for $10,000, the refusal, the blows, the silence of relatives, the officer's voice, the ambulance doors. I kept my focus on the rail of the witness stand and on the steady memory of June's breath against my wrist the night after Trevor testified briefly about the embezzlement plea. The judge limited details, but the point landed. Pattern. The jury returned in under 3 hours. Guilty on all counts, assault on a minor, battery, child endangerment, reckless endangerment. At sentencing, the judge's voice didn't waver. You attacked a child in public, prevented aid, and showed no remorse until consequence arrived. 5 years, she said. No contact upon release unless the victim consents as an adult. Elaine and Russ were fined, ordered to complete counseling, and accepted a civil settlement that covered June's medical care, therapy, and punitive damages. We signed, filed, and folded the copies into the blue binder. June's healing was a longer calendar. She learned to name dizziness before it became fear. We practiced exits from crowded rooms, turned school assemblies into scavenger hunts for bench, light, friend. Dr. Patel, the child psychologist the hospital recommended, taught us both a sentence I still keep in my pocket. My body is telling me a story. I can listen without obeying. Nightmares retreated to the doorway and then left. Elaine tried a final script. A letter about holidays, about blood being thicker than mistakes. I returned it to sender. Russ sent a short note that said only, I thought I was keeping peace. I didn't reply. Peace without safety is performance. We're finished performing. Trevor kept showing up the way decent people do, with resources, not demands. He referred me to a hiring manager at a firm across town who valued calm under pressure more than small talk. I got the job. I set an automatic transfer into June's college account twice a month and watched the number climb, a quiet vote for her future. We celebrated small anniversaries, Stitch Day, Cast Day, ice cream on the courthouse steps day. A year out, June joined soccer, discovered she likes goalkeeping because boundaries are literal there. She and I planted herbs on the balcony and named each pot for a thing we're keeping. Time, truth, rest. The scar thinned into a pale crescent that looks like a quotation mark. Some days I swear I can hear what it's saying. When Tessa appealed, the court affirmed the sentence in a neat paragraph that read like a door clicking shut. Elaine showed up once in the lobby at my work, hands twisted in a theater of sorrow, Security walked her out before she could try a new story. I didn't shake for hours afterward, and only later realized that counted as progress. By the second summer, the civil case closed and the restraining orders renewed without fuss. June got an invitation to a friend's lake birthday and asked me if water can be loud. We packed earplugs and courage and went. She jumped from the low dock once and then again, laughing hard enough to pull me in by my sleeve. The sound the lake made was not loud at all. It was exactly enough. Money stayed money, boring, honest, useful. I met with a planner Trevor recommended who adjusted investments and made the numbers work harder than I could on my own. We opened a tiny custodial account for June's first savings deposit from chore money. She wrote, "Save for big ideas" on the outside with stars. Sometimes people ask if I miss family. I tell them the truth. I miss the idea of it, not the practice I had. Then June will come in from playing with a scraped knee and say, "I need soap, a bandage, and your hug." And I realize we have family, exactly enough of it, right here. On the second anniversary, June and I returned to the beach. We built a lopsided castle and let the tide decide what stayed. She traced her finger along her scar and said, "I think it looks like a moon." "Me too," I said. "It means we kept the night and found the morning." She nodded as if she had always known. The blue binder lives on a high shelf now. I still touch its spine sometimes, a ritual that feels less like checking a lock and more like acknowledging a story that belongs to us, but no longer runs us. Our door chime is set to a low melody. Our neighbor knows our code word. June sleeps with the fox under her arm and the window cracked just enough to hear crickets make their ordinary music. I used to think justice would feel like thunder. It turned out to feel like routine. Breakfast dishes in the rack, a signed permission slip, shoes lined by the door, the sound of homework pencils, a laugh from the couch. Safety is quiet, and it is not boring. It is the shape love makes when it has room. One evening, June asked, "Are we safe forever?" I held her hand. "Nobody gets forever," I said, "but we get today, and we guard tomorrow together." She considered, then grinned. "Okay, then today we have spaghetti." We did. We ate at the table we bought secondhand and sanded ourselves, and afterward we stood in the kitchen and danced to a song we didn't know the words to. If there's a lesson, it's small enough to fit in a pocket and strong enough to build a life around. You don't buy peace with your child's future. You don't barter safety for someone else's comfort. You don't call cruelty family and let it live in your house. You draw the line and you keep it even when it shakes. June is asleep now, her breath steady, the fox tucked under her arm. The apartment hums with ordinary machines. The binder is on its shelf. The locks are set. I sit at the table and write the ending I once could only hope for. The money stayed where it belonged, the boundaries held, the consequences arrived, and the child I chose every single time has room to grow. The money stayed protected. The boundaries stayed firm. The consequences stayed real, and my daughter's future stayed bright.